about to cake up this gorgeous yarn, and it is the fourth cake that I've made with this yarn because I'm using it in my DRK everyday sweater. And every time I've caked this beautiful yarn up, I have had problems with the winder chokehold. And if you've experienced it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's pretty annoying. And when I first started winding my own yarn on my, or winding, not winding my own yarn, winding my yarn on a ball winder, I was really confused about how to avoid that. So I'm going to show you what I have found works for me and how to get the perfect yarn cake. All right, so the last time I tried to do this video, the audio was pretty hard to, hear, I guess. Someone said it was pretty erratic on the levels. So I'm gonna try not to move the camera very much at all so that I'm at the same level away from you the whole time. But you can see we're starting out great with this beautiful honeycomb pattern with the yarn. I'm going super slow so that you can see how it's winding up, you know, below, above, below, above. And we're just gonna keep going until we hit that inevitable chokehold situation. Now the reason that this yarn looks so tight on this ball winder, if you can see, it's a little glary. Maybe I can, there we go. You see how tight that is? That's because of the tension coming off of here to my Swift. There's not really a way to fix that unless you pull this off the Swift and then wind it after that. You can do that, that's fine. I find that it takes even longer for me to do that than what I'm going to be showing you today. Okay, so we got a decent amount on the winder before we got this chokehold thing. And you can see here that it's slipping off of the cake. And you'll most likely be able to feel that as you're winding it, that there's this little hiccup in the rhythm of the winder. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna unwind this just a little bit until we get to where that little hiccup started. See how it just falls right like that? So we're gonna go one more. And what's happened here is the center of your ball has changed a little bit. See how it's a little more rounded here and it's not as rounded here? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna push this down a little bit. Now, if you get a chokehold up here, you're gonna be pushing it up. If you get a chokehold down here, you're gonna be pushing it down. So we're gonna push it down a little bit. You're just gonna adjust it slightly. There, just a little bit. And then you can wind it up again. You might have to unwind it just a tad so that it can grab on again. There we go. And then it'll start that honeycomb pattern all over again really nicely. And here we go. We're getting just the littlest bit of a chokehold on the top now. And I could feel it change in the rhythm there. So I just stopped. And I'm gonna push it up a little bit. Now, some of you might be like, just carry on. Oh my goodness, this perfectionism. But really, it's really good for you to just stop for a minute and change it, because if you don't, what will ensue afterwards while you're knitting is going to be inevitably yarn barf in your cake. If you are someone who pulls from the center of the ball, then it's just going to be all caught up together. If you're someone who pulls from the outside of the ball, then you're going to have that weird like group of loops that's hanging out of your yarn cake and is just getting caught up as your yarn continues to swirl around. So you can try to turn it, you know, the other way so that it's coming off of this end, or you can try to push it back in, but it just keeps happening. So it's worth it to just do it on the front end. There's a phrase in the film industry, what you can do in pre-production, you do there so that you don't have to do it in production. What you can do in production, you do there so that you don't have to do it in post. It's always way easier to do it in the stage before than the stage after to kind of clean up the lack of forethought or the mess that you've made in that particular situation. Okay, so there is the full cake. She's beautiful. Look at those tones in there. Aren't they so pretty? The one thing about that first wind, though, is that it is so hard to get off the ball winder. You're going to see me struggle with this for a minute just because it is so tight on there. Actually, I'm going to just take this off. It's so tight on this tunnel. Oh, golly. Ooh. It's like opening champagne or something. It is every time it's like this with that first wind, just because of that tension from the Swift. And I know that some people do it differently, where they unwind the Swift as they go, but I just don't think with the double wind that it saves me any time, because the tension has to be so steady for that to work, and I don't trust my hands that much. So you can see how tightly wound this is, right? Let me give you a comparison. Okay, so here is the cake we just wound, and here is a cake that has been wound twice. Look at the difference. Isn't that crazy how different that is? Now, I usually get the chokehold because this is superwash yarn. And of course, that is slippery, right? And you think, oh, well, I guess I'll just do the double wind with anything I get the chokehold on. No, 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 no. We've already fixed the chokehold. The double wind is for the tension of the yarn. It's so much, the strands are so much freer here. Now, here is some non-superwash yarn that has been wound once. Let it focus. There we go. It's been wound once. I did this one today. And then this one is the same, and it's been wound twice. See how smushy this one is? It's just so squishy and smushy. And this one has like not a lot of give on it. And it's just because it's so tightly wound. So I'm going to be winding this one again today, and that's not because it did a chokehold at all. It didn't. This one is non-superwash, so it's pretty grippy. So it's got like this really nice cavern lip, is what I want to call it, on here. Even though this one is kind of slippery and doesn't have that as much, it's kind of rounded. This one grips on pretty well. I don't have any chokehold issues with non-superwash yarn very often, but with the superwash it is more slippery, and so I have that issue. So if you're thinking, Bethany, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm never going to double wind my yarn. Number one, let me challenge you on that, because we are in the process of making things slowly as knitters, and that's okay to add an extra step. We do it all the time. So if it's worth it to you, then great. If it's not, then that's up to you. But it does make a huge difference on the tension of your yarn here. And if you're not going to do that, then I would advise you to do what I've already done with this one. This one I've kind of squished around so that the inside, the tension gets a little bit, it takes up that negative space in there, right? So there's not any way to see through here. But this one has a definite hole in it. And so if I squish this around, right, I'm going to get to fill up that negative space. And eventually it'll help even this out. On the inside, you can already see how much looser these strands are than these strands are, just because they're able to take up more space in there. But I'm going to rewind this one and this one even though it's probably going to take me, I don't know, 30 minutes to do the both of them, because it's going to be so worth it in my knitting to be able to have that bounce in the product before I block it. So that is my formula for perfect yarn cakes. If you have any questions, leave a comment below, or if you have any more tips for perfect yarn cakes, also leave a comment below. I would love to hear them.